Hey guys, it's Stephen here, back with another day full of positivity in the world of Manchester City Football Club. Yep, more positive news. We've sold one of our really exciting young wingers. Just the news we needed after a 2-1 defeat to Newcastle. I'm just about over that because it's only football at the end of the day. And life will go on, and we're still in the fight for 3 competitions. 4 competitions still. You never know what's going to happen. We've been in worse positions than this before. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but you never know. But anyway, life does go on. Football does carry on. People keep coming and going. Football will be here long after we all pass away and we're 6 feet under in the ground, won't it? So it's not worth eating ourselves up over. But this bit of news is that Rabbi Matondo has completed his transfer to Schalke. He's on his way to training right now. He's done his medical, and we've lost out on another very exciting young attacking player, which isn't good news. Now, there are 2 ways you can look at this transfer in general. One, it's like, oh, that's part of football these days. We lose out on these kind of players. It swings and roundabouts. That's just a game. And some people would say, oh, it's impossible to develop youth talent given the expectations on the team and all that kind of stuff. There's another way of saying, well, we should be doing the most to make sure that these players want to play for Manchester City, and we shouldn't be losing them out at such a young age because their potential ceiling limit is really high. And I'm not going to tell you that either of those opinions are wrong because I don't have any right to, but I'm going to offer my opinion on this in general and just try and talk reasonably about a situation that maybe we could try and deal with a little bit better. But anyway, he's joined Schalke. Now, the rumoured fees are circulating around a little bit different. It's not actually been announced on Schalke's site. By the time this video goes out, I'm sure it'll be actually there. But he's done. He's in Germany. He's training with them. Some people are reporting the fee is around 10 million euros with a buyback of as high as 55 million pounds. That's what Bild are reporting. Bild are also reporting that Bayern Munich were after him as well, but he went to Schalke in the end where he feels he can get more games and all that kind of stuff. And some people are also saying the fee was around 11 million quid, not euros, and the buyback would be around 30 with a sell-on fee of around 25%. The one consistency here of all the reports, and I've seen the fee wildly range between about 10 million, 5 and 15 and whatever, and the buyback between 30 and 50, is that there actually is a buyback. Now, I like the fact it's a buyback. I'm not going to lie. I think Rabbi Matondo is a player with exceptional potential. He might not reach the top, but he also could be very good very quickly with a little bit of luck. And I'm glad that we've got this buyback there because it kind of essentially it protects us from this lad potentially exploding. We get there very early if he does reach his levels that he's capable of reaching. No, he might not reach those levels, obviously, but having that buyback there does give us this buffer and this potential safeguard to allow for his growth as a Manchester City player, potentially. I mean, at Schalke, you'll get game time, I presume. They're not going to invest around 11 million or whatever it's going to be initially and not play this young lad because there's a tidy profit in it if they give him the game time that he could get. Now, obviously, they lost one of their most exciting young attacking players a couple of years back to us, Mr. Leroy Sané. And he's done all right for himself. Now they've got, probably because of the contacts made from that actually, a decent bargain potentially of a player in Rabbi Matondo. Now, if you don't know much about Rabbi Matondo, we got him from Cardiff a couple of years back as a very exciting, very precocious young winger. Cardiff City basically said he was the most exciting prospect they've seen in a long time. Talked about the likes of Ramsey and all that kind of stuff. And they bigged him up as the next big, great Wales hope. And he's very, very good. Now, I personally, I'm not just saying this in hindsight, and I've said this before, I don't think he's quite the level of the golden trio where that Brahim and Foden and Sancho were put on this pedestal. I think personally he was a little bit below that, but there's very much a debate to be had whether he's at the level, and once again, there's fine margins in these things. He's definitely, though, without a shadow of doubt, is a player that has loads of natural ability on the ball. He's very fast. We're talking like, Speedy Gonzalez level fast here. He's lightning quick. Not as physical as Leroy Sané in terms of height, but he has that same ability to just burst past people. Though I say he burst past people more in the way that Shawnee Wright did. So he had that ability to just kind of drop his shoulder and go past them, not glide past them. And he can score goals. He's a very good finisher as well. He scored plenty of goals for the youth teams. And in general, he's an absolute threat. He can play on the left or the right. He can run past people with ease, really, as if they're not even there. But then, obviously, there's a huge step up in terms of quality to be tested at in the Bundesliga compared to the under-23s league and so on. He can also pass as well. He's a nice little passer of the ball. He can play some lovely little through balls. But he's got the huge test of his career now. Now, he's played a lot of, professional games this season for the under-23s as the B team in the Checker Trophy. And he's done pretty well for what I can gather. I've not seen all the games, but for what I can tell online, he's done really well, and he's exerted himself admirably, to be honest, in a team that has no right to do as well as it did in the end. And he should be he's probably even very tempted to get another taste of professional football, and I don't really blame him. Now, he's already as well made his debut for Wales, which is a trend that we're seeing more of in general for young players. Like we saw Matt Smith, a Manchester City youngster currently on loan at FC Twente in second tier Dutch football. He's their star for them, one of their best players, and he's already playing for Wales under Ryan Giggs' management. And I quite like, to fair to Giggs, what he's doing at Wales when he's giving these young lads like Ampadu, Chelsea's Ampadu, and Matondo at City, and then Matt Smith at City as well, giving them these games early on. And obviously we're seeing like some Matondo and Smith play in front of tens of thousands of people for Wales and do well, genuinely do well. And they're obviously around the first team training as well for Wales, and they're comfortable in that environment. So as a result, they're thinking, well, why do I need to go back to under-23s football? And I don't really blame them. And at some point, they probably think they can test themselves. Now, some people would turn around and say it's arrogant to presume that they want first-team football immediately. I don't think they all do think that. I think in general, we're presuming because they leave that they think they should be playing for Manchester City Football Club. I don't really buy into that. I think some of these are leaving because they're realistic and they know they probably won't get a chance at Manchester City Football Club because they're seeing someone as prodigious as Brahim Diaz sat on the bench and barely getting game time, thinking, well, if he can't get in and he's in favour with Guardiola, what chance have I got? You can say that's defeatist, but it's also a realist approach. And they're seeing the likes of Mahrez, Bernardo, Gabriel Jesus. They're all ahead of them in terms of the pecking order. And that's not to mention Sterling and Sane as well, who are the number 1 and 2 choice as wingers. So he's probably thinking, I'm about 6th or 7th in the pecking order here. I'm not going to get a game. So I'd rather just go start my career as an 18-year-old. And to be honest, Manchester City's own research that they actually published shows that something like 90% of players who reached the Champions League semi-final stages on average started playing their career professionally around 17, 18. So they're all playing football regularly at that age. Essentially, a lot of the best players are playing regular football from a young age. Now, there are obviously some exceptions to that. You can look at the likes of Wayne Rooney and Owen, where their careers started to drop off a cliff as they got older because they started playing very young. But there's also loads of exceptions to show the alternative. Aguero was 15 when he made his debut, and and he's all right. So there's no right or wrong answer. But research does show that the high-level players started playing early. Maybe that's because they're better. Maybe because they were a little bit lucky. Who knows? But the facts are there, and they're indisputable. Now, for Matondo, he probably wants to be one of those players, and I don't blame him. He could go to Schalke, he could play plenty of games there, and he could star very quickly. You've got to look at the likes of Reece Nelson, Jadon Sancho, of course, is the one that cuts the deepest. They're doing very well over there. Even one of our ex-youngsters, Havaro de Wilson, went to Hertha Berlin on essentially a free transfer. I mean, they paid a very nominal fee. And he was a Dutch under-20 international, scored plenty of goals for Holland. And general did very well at academy level largely, but he was still nowhere near in the favour of like Foden and Sancho. And he's gone over there and done very well in the Bundesliga as well, as a guy making his first steps into professional football. And Rabbi Matondo probably thinks, well, I can do the same. And to be honest, I wouldn't really blame him for thinking that way because he does have the ability. And sometimes you do have to back yourself to go over there and make this impact. Now, what does it say for Manchester City's academy? Are you happy in general with this idea that we're just a money-making machine? Yes and no. For me, this transfer in particular, if the fee is only as low as £30 million in terms of a buyback, it's not actually that bad a business deal, because the way we could see it, if we say we signed him for around 10 million quid or something like that, and we can buy back for around 30, essentially what we're doing there is sacrificing a £20 million loan fee for development. You look at it that way. So we can buy him back for 30 million and he reaches the level that we want him to. We've basically just paid Schalke, a couple of years to develop him for 20 million. And given the fact what you play these days for highly exciting wingers, that's absolute peanuts. Now, personally, I think the 30 million estimation seems a bit low. I'm not sure why Schalke would agree to that, given what they sold Sane for, given what they know that wingers go these days. I reckon the 55 million euros one, as rumoured by Bild, the German newspaper, is probably a little bit closer to the mark, which is what, like mid-40s or something like that? I don't know. I'm not sure what it is in terms of exchange rate. But either way, I'd be surprised if it's as low as £30 million. I think it's probably closer to 40. But either way, that's still potentially a bargain if it does actually turn out to be a wise investment for Schalke in terms of he does actually exceed his potential, at least reach his potential. For me, I don't really like this whole thing as academy being held up just as a money-making thing. I do think there are some encouraging signs this year that City are taking the academy seriously, and we do actually want to give these players chances. Foden he obviously is part of the first team. He obviously is trusted by Guardiola. He hasn't played enough game time yet. I agree with that, but the signs are promising. He at least is a young player that's involved around the first team, and Pep obviously doesn't want him to go anywhere. He doesn't want him out on loan, and he does have a level of trust in him. Whether he's ready yet or not, that's open for debate as well, but you cannot deny that Pep does want him there and does want him in the first team and does see the potential in. That's undisputable, really. Whether he's getting enough game time, that once again, that is open for debate, but you can't really argue that Pep doesn't see value in Foden, and he is around the first team, and he is a first team player. And likewise, we're seeing Eric Garcia get games now. Maybe he could get more given on, but he's only very young and he's a centre back, and it's harder to integrate centre backs. But he's obviously trusted by Guardiola, and we've seen obviously debuts for the likes of Felix Amaecha, Ian Poveda, and Aram Juric. I mean, is by circumstance, admittedly, but most youngsters get their chances by circumstance. He's getting games as well as a second choice keeper. So there are some promising signs of youth players getting games these days. Maybe not quite enough, but it's not been totally abandoned. And I still think the overall aim for the academy always and will 100% be to produce players for the first team. I do think City still intended for to do that, but we're seeing a trend now of getting these players out for a decent fee and hopefully getting them back an even better fee potentially. And I think this is wise given the way football's going. We're seeing a lot of young players now really agitating for a move. It didn't start just last season either. It started earlier than that. We first saw the signs with Tyrese Campbell, a very promising youth striker now at Stoke. He bagged something like 60 goals from the 16s, didn't sign a contract and moved on. At one point, Tom Delibashiri wasn't going to sign a contract. Eventually, we convinced him to. Then we saw Bobby Duncan obviously leave for Liverpool. We saw Jadon Sancho wanting to leave. We've seen now Rabbi Matondo wanting to leave, and there's rumours that some even under 16s are considering doing the same thing. Now, there's obviously a bit of a reputation that City getting of not giving these young players a chance. This is the kind of thing that hopefully Garcia and Foden will change if they do. Now, obviously, as well, we've seen Brahim Diaz leave. Whether you think that's right or not, I don't know. But all we know is that a very talented young player has left once again. We're all got different levels of happiness around these things. Personally, I think there's nothing more exciting in football than a youngster coming through and making a name for themselves at the club that we love, because I think that's just more exciting. I think it's more interesting than a £50 million signing. There's the shock of the unknown, there's discovery of the new and all that kind of stuff, and for me that's what we should be aiming to do as a club, and it is possible. History's proven it's possible, but it's been done now. Rabbi Matondo is he's a Schalke player, and I genuinely wish him all the best, and I hope he does well, and I hope that he justifies the fee that Schalke put in for him, and hopefully we can buy him back if he reaches the limits that we think he could actually do. I don't blame him for leaving. He was only Manchester City player for 2 years. He probably felt no real attachment to the club other than getting a great education, and all the best. Guys, what do you make of this transfer? If you haven't already, go watch my Newcastle video yesterday. I've tried to be really fair in this video about Matondo and his situation. I hope you appreciate that. But I am interested, as always, to hear your thoughts on this situation, because this is Manchester City fan channel where we're all entitled to our views, as long as you're polite in the comments below, of course. Guys, I've been Stephen. Check out my Newcastle video yesterday. I'm not as sulky as I was yesterday now. We're all entitled to a 10-minute sulk, of course. Subscribe if you're new to this channel. Give this video a like if you want to, and I'll see you soon.